Hi everyone, Sandy here. Welcome back to my channel. This is a tutorial for my 6" by 8" with 1.5" spine Hidden Waterfall with Pockets mini album that I designed for Country Craft Creations. This tutorial will be showing you how to make the base of the album. There'll be a separate video on how to assemble a cover in the lay flat method, but I will be giving you the measurements for this particular album in the tutorial and in the cutting list that you can find down below in my description. So you can click on the cutting list link. It will take you to my Google Doc, and you can save and print up the cutting list for this album. And there will also be a link to the video showing you how to put the cover together. So I'm doing that separately. This video will be just showing you how to make the base. It will not include all the patterning and decorating. You can do that on your own with any collection that you want to use, but I am featuring this new exclusive collection from Country Craft Creations called Sweet Southern Mess. So stay tuned for the tutorial, which will start shortly. Thank you. For this Hidden Waterfall with Pockets mini album, I will be working with the exclusive paper collection by Country Craft Creations called Sweet Southern Mess. This comes in a package, the 12 by 12 of 28 sheets. And what you get is 2 sheets of the cut aparts, the cards, the 3 by 4 and 4 by 4 cards, 2 sheets of the tags, and then you get 3 sheets of 8 different designs for a total of 28 sheets in this collection. And you can find it only at Country Craft Creations. It's available now, and it runs $21.99 for this whole collection. So you're getting a lot of extras of each design to really stretch your project. So I'm pretty positive I will not be using all of this in this project. I'll have plenty left over. Now also I will be using white artisan cardstock, which is also from Country Craft Creations, and I only need probably 10 sheets, but I added in 1 extra in case I needed tags. So 11 sheets of the 12 by 12 white artisan cardstock is what I'm going to be using. And then of course you want your adhesives. My preference is the art glitter glue that you can also order from Country Craft Creations, and a couple of score tape sheets for your album cover. And then we're going to need 1 sheet of the 12 by 12 chipboard to make the album cover, and optional is a roll of score tape. So let's go ahead and get started with this tutorial. First, you're going to want to make your album cover. Now I have a separate video that I'm going to link down below in my description. It'll be the link right below the cutting list. So I do share a link to my cutting list for this project, and then the link on how to make this album cover. This is the lay flat album cover designed by Country Craft Creations by Tamara Merrill, and I do show you how I make it in a separate video so that I can refer to it for all my tutorials in which I'm making this type of cover, even with a different size. So what I'm going to do is give you the sizes of the pieces you need, but you will also find that in the cutting list that you can click on and download and print up. So for the cover, you're going to need 2 chipboard, heavyweight chipboard cut at 6 by 8. And then you're going to need for your spine, you want 1 that is cut at 1.5 by 8. This cover is a 6 by 8 with a 1.5 spine. Then to wrap these pieces, if you're using cardstock, you'll want 2 8 by 10s, 1 4.5 by 10, and 1 3.5 by 8. So jot those numbers down or print up the cutting list, and then go to the video I'll link below for how to make your cover, and go ahead and get your cover made. And then we'll go ahead and start working on our pages, our waterfall, our hidden waterfall, and putting them in the book. And what I'm going to do is construct the whole thing, leave it plain. Now you can use any paper collection that you want depending on what you're making this for. There's lots of wonderful exclusive Country Craft Creations paper collections in the store right now, depending on what you need, like Halloween, Christmas, all the way back to Mother's Day, 4th of July, or patriotic Ireland, you name it. Just go check it all out. Plus, there are other collections in the online store as they're available by other manufacturers. So you want to check all that out at countrycraftcreations.com. So this is my cover that's finished. And so go ahead and get your cover made and then join me back here to start on the pages. The tools I'm going to use to create my pages for this album are definitely my 12-inch trimmer, whichever one you prefer, a scoreboard, scoring tool. I like to use this Cricut one. A bone folder. I like the Teflon because it has a nice rounded one. I'm going to also be using a envelope punch board, and most likely the scallop and stub chomper, as well as a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch corner chomper. So those are the tools that I'm going to be using for sure. And I'm going to set these right here aside. Now I have already cut my cardstock and scored it, but I'm going to go over it with you so that you will know what I'm doing. So the first thing that we're going to make is for the inside cover of our album, we're going to make a hidden waterfall. Okay, so let's take the flaps that we're going to make for this. We need a left flap that is 5 3/4 by 7 7/8, and I've scored the 5 3/4 side here at a 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. Scored at 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch all the way down. And then when that's folded up, that gives us this little 1/4 inch space to accommodate our waterfall. So that's the left flap. The right flap is going to be smaller. It is cut at 4 3/4 by 7 7/8, and then we're going to score the 4 3/4 side, put that in at the top, and we're going to score again at a 1/2 inch and 3/4 inches. So score all the way down, and that gives us that spacing for the right side. Now for our waterfall flaps, I'm going to cut 8. I believe that they will fit. You may have 1 or 2 more than you need, but we're going to cut 8. And these are all cut at 5 7/8 wide by 4 1/2 tall. But we're going to turn it and we're going to put the 4 1/2 here at the top, and each one is going to be scored at a 1/2 inch. So this, once it's folded, we're going to have a 5 7/8 wide flap that is 4 inches tall. So this will accommodate a 4x6 photo. You'll have to trim it down just a little bit, or a 4x6 recipe card, or that you might want to use if you're using this for a recipe book. You will have to trim it down just a little bit. I didn't want to make an odd size cover, so I made it 6 inch wide for the cover, and we're going to do these at 5 7/8 to fit those in there. So go ahead, cut those pieces. And you also will need one piece to assemble your waterfall that is 5 7/8 wide by 7 7/8 tall. No scoring on this one. Okay, so let's remove this, and we're going to burnish all our waterfall flaps. Give them really good burnish, and I'm going to speed up the video right now while I do all 8 of these. Okay, so we have all 8 of these burnished, so let's go ahead and I did fold these, but I'm going to burnish them again to make sure I've got a really good crease on these folds. And if you're using the artisan cardstock, it burnishes really well without any cracking. So there we have those. So now we're ready to do some assembly work. Now on my waterfalls, I am going to corner around the bottoms. And I think I'm going to use a 1/4 inch. So pay attention, if you're using the crocodile, it'll have engraved 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. So the side that you're punching on will be the size that you want. And it's really easy. You can do more than one at a time if you wanted to with this tool. But the corner you're punching is open the wings up completely. You see those. And then you insert the corner in so that the point of the corner goes into the center and the sides are flush with the wings. That's why you want the wings open, and you just punch. It's just a really easy punch, and it will go through chipboard and different thicknesses. So I'm going to go ahead and do these all off camera. I have all the corners punched on my waterfall flaps. So the next thing we want to do is work on these flaps that hide the waterfall. So I'm going to also round the corners of these. So I have my 1/4 inch here, and I'm going to insert this in and just punch the corners that are opposite of where it's scored, because you don't want to punch that. So this is the same way, the outer corners. And then I want to put a notch in each one with my envelope punch board. So let's bring that in. If you don't have this, then you can use a circle punch or a thumb notch punch that you might have to punch the center. I just happen to like using this. So let's measure this. This was, what did I say? This one is 7 7/8 tall. We want it halfway, so half is 4 for the 8 inch, and we need to make it, let's just slide it over about a 1/16 of an inch. So that's the half, 1/16 of an inch should be about right there, and I'm going to punch it. So that gives me a notch right there. That should be pretty close to the center. Let's double check. So that would be not quite 8. So yeah, that's pretty close. Close enough for me. Okay. Now we'll do the other one the same way. Now make sure you're punching it on the side that is not your hinge. So the same way, put it at 4 and then just back it up 1/16 of an inch. So there we have that. Now you will do the same thing for your printed papers when you're ready to attach that. But again, I'm not doing that here. So let's assemble this. Let's take this base piece. This is the 5 7/8 wide by 7 7/8 tall. What we're going to do is now you could put these directly in your book, but I like to build them up on a piece of paper. So let's bring our scoreboard and mat in to help us line this up better. Okay, we got that. We have our piece. I'm going to turn it sideways, and I'm going to put this in so it's flush to the top, or my left now, and to the bottom here. We take one waterfall piece, and this is going to go in just like that. So on the back side, on this flap, so on the back side where my flap is, I have a new bottle of glue, so I have to be real careful with it. Put your glue on your flap, and then we're going to attach it to the top right along the cut line. Open it up, take your bone folder, and burnish that. So it's real important to get that first one on straight, burnish it down. Now if you still need to use your scoreboard, that's fine. I usually kind of leave it in like that. So you take the second one and do the same, glue on the flap, and put the fold of this one right up against the bottom of the previous flap that you attached. Now, what this does is it gives you that 1/2 inch space between the fold of the first one and the fold of the second one. Now you're going to repeat this using this cut line of your flap right here for each one that you attach. And so they should all be nicely spaced 1/2 inch apart. So just keep doing that. I may speed up this. If you need to pause the video, do that to get yours done, and then come back once you have it all ready. So I'm just lining up this at the bottom here to make sure it stays straight and putting this down. And so I'm going to keep working on this till I have them all on. I do have 8 made. I think my calculations hopefully were correct on how many can go on this section. Okay, so I had to pause my camera to clean up my glue bottle. It's a new bottle and it keeps oozing out at the base, even though it's of the lid, even though it's tightened up as tight as I can get it. So I forgot to turn it on for a couple of these, and I may have had my scoreboard down kind of low. But what I did, again, to go over it, all 8 did fit perfectly. So that leaves us this piece down here. So you put your first one on, line it up at the top of your base piece, and then the second one lines up along the fold of it, lines up to the bottom of the 1/2 inch of the previous one, and you continue. So right now I'm just reburnishing all my flaps. Make sure they're creased really nicely. And we do have 8 on here, which gives us 9 with this bottom piece here. So this is our waterfall piece. It's going to go in the book. Now I'm not going to corner around this bottom one here because that's what glues down into the album. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take, let me move this out of the way. We're going to take our album cover, and on the front inside cover here, we're going to glue our 2 flaps. Now we flatten this down so that we flatten it down so we have the score line here on the front, the little 1/4 inch, see that right there? And then we have the 1/2 inch attachment flap here on the back. And we're going to make sure it does not go over or into that fold of the spine. And we're going to line it up top to bottom centered. It's 7 7/8 into an 8 inch cover. So you're just going to have a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom. So let's put our glue on this hinge, our attachment hinge flap. Okay, turn it so I can see it. And I'm making sure I am not, now glue gives you a little bit of wiggle room to hold that up and make sure it is not into that. Now I know you see all these different layers here, and that's okay. We're going to be covering that up. So that is the one on the right. I'm going to turn it back around. Now we're going to line up this one. We do the same thing. We flatten the score line so we see the one on the front. We have a 1/4 inch, and then we have the 1/2 inch here on this side. So that's where the glue goes. And we do use magnets. I forgot to tell you at the front that we will need magnets for some of these. So I will add that into the cutting list for you. Now I'm going to line these up, make sure, and I'm coming in from the cover just about 1/16 of an inch here to kind of give room for this to stand up. And I'm lining it up with the one I've already put down. And my glue, I'm going to make sure it is catching. Burnish that down. And lift this up and burnish. Make sure I burnish the other one as well. So now we have the bigger one goes to the outside, and we have the smaller one here on the inside. And that's where the magnets are going to go, is on this flap here and here after we put our waterfall in. So open it up, and we have our waterfall. I'm just going to fit it in here. We don't want it going over our score lines of our flaps. So it should fit just exactly and in line with them here at the top. So I'm not making, you could make a belly band, but with the flaps it would be pointless because of the opening up the flaps. Now my glue is really coming out. So now put glue over the entire piece here. More than I wanted there. Okay, so now we flip it over, and we're going to line this up with the top edge of our flap, making sure, I'm going to look over here, I'm not going over into my flaps or the score line, the 1/4 inch section. So burnish this really well. Now you're going to have to burnish between each one to get down in there. You want to make sure that you do that so that it's not buckling up on you. So between each, the 1/2 inch space, go ahead and burnish those. And that should give us our waterfall with our hidden within our book. Make sure there, maybe I didn't get, I got it over a little bit too far. I need to lift up, so I do apologize for that. If you have to make an adjustment quickly here. For some reason that top one scooted over too far and I didn't check that. I want to make sure she's lining up right here on this side. Okay. Okay, so for the magnets, I have my clear tape that I'm going to use, my glue, and my 2 little magnets. I'm going to put the one here on this flap first. So I'm just putting a bit of glue kind of in the center right here. I'll put my magnet down. And then I like to take some wide Scotch tape and place it over it. This secures it and also kind of protects, covers the edges of the magnet so it doesn't show as much in your, under your pattern paper. So I put just a little bit of glue on the magnet that I attached down, and I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to let that glue dry before I put my tape on. So I want to make sure that this top flap stands up here on this 1/4 inch and then matches up with this second one here. And I'm going to just press this down, and then I'm going to take my clip and I'm going to clip it in place and then let that dry. Okay, so my magnet has dried the glue, and so I'm putting the tape over it now. And like I said, this seems to help smooth it all out there. And so there's the closure for this flap on this side. So the inside of the album cover is finished and ready for pattern paper. So next we're going to work on the inside back cover. For the inside back cover, we're going to make 2 flaps, pocket flaps that flip up and down. So there'll be a little pocket on the front and then a place for a photo inside. And then we're going to make, and it will have a magnet closure, and then we're going to make a double pocket here on the left. So I've already pre-cut my all my cardstock. So for the flaps, you need to cut one that is 5.5 by 3.5, and we're going to score the 5.5, put that at the top. We're going to score at 1/2 inch to get the attachment hinge or flap. And then you want one that is 4.5 by 3.5, score at 1/2 inch on your 4.5 inch side. So those are the flaps. The pockets that go on that, you want two that are 4.5 by 4.5, and we're going to put one of the 4.5 inch sides in at the top. We're going to score it at 1/2 inch and at 4, and then you will turn it to the other 4.5 inch side and just make 1/2 inch score. So that's your pocket. You want two of those. So again, these are 4.5 by 4.5. Put your one 4.5 in at the top, score it at 1/2 inch and at 4, and then turn to the other 4.5 inch side so that you're scoring at the bottom at 1/2 inch. So that's the pockets for those flaps on the right side. For the double pockets, we're going to cut two that are 5 inches by 4. We're going to score the 5 inch side, put that in at your top at 1/2 inch and at 4.5. Turn it so that you've got your 4 inch at the top and make a 1/2 inch score for this pocket. And then we'll do the same on this one. We have the 5 inch at the top, score at 1/2 inch, 4.5, turn and score the 4 inch side at 1/2 inch. So that will make the pockets. So now we're ready to start folding and burnishing. Now with these pockets, you're going to take your scissors, and where you see the square here, I'm just going to make a cut right across where they meet. Okay, so you want like a miter cut like that on all your pockets. So do that and then fold and burnish. All these go in the same direction on the back side. Take a look at it here. They shouldn't overlap once you've done your miter cut. So if they do, you might need to trim them just a little bit. So that gives you your pocket there. So this other one will be exactly the same. So just do your miter cut right across. You don't want to cut to the inside of that, but right on that intersection of those two lines. And then burnish. And again, when you fold, just check to make sure that they don't overlap. Mine has just a little bit, so I am just going to trim a tiny bit off on that side that overhangs onto it, not at the tip. So we have those pockets. These are our two pockets that go on the double pockets on the left side of our book. These pockets will go on the other flaps. So we do the same thing. We angle, cut here, and then we're going to fold it up and burnish and check to make sure they're not overlapping. It just makes it lay down a whole lot better. No bulk there. Those pockets go there. I have two of these. Then an angle cut. Fold and burnish. Trim just a little more on this one. This one needs more trimming. There we go. And then these, you just fold the flaps. The score line, these are the flaps that we have at the top and the bottom. Okay, so next we're going to corner around these. Okay. And we're going to take the 1/4 inch again, and I'm just going to round the 2 bottom corners opposite of the fold on both of these flaps. And then the pocket that goes on these I think that I need to cut this one down just a little bit. So these actually should have been a little bit shorter. I do apologize. And I'm going to cut off because I want some of this showing here at the top. So I'm going to cut off and change this in the cutting list so it will be corrected. I'm going to cut off about 1 inch. So these should have been 3.5 by 4.5. So I'm going to recut these. So I've trimmed these 2 down. The correct measurements will be in the cutting guide. And so what I trimmed them down to was 3.5 with a 1/2 inch score on the bottom. So cut that off the top. Now I'm going to open these up and take my envelope punch board. These 2 measure with the flaps open 4.5. So with the flaps open, 4.5 is 2 1/4. So I'm going to put this in at 2 1/4 with the flaps, the hinge open, 2 1/4, and punch each one. So I have that notch in the center. And again, if you do not have the envelope punch board, you can do this with a thumb notch punch or 1/2 of a circle punch. So there's those like that. Okay. Then we have these double pockets here. And these measure with the flaps opened up or the hinges 5. So 2.5 is your 1/2 mark. So put this in at 2.5. I have this folded part out. 2.5 and 2.5 on this pocket also. Okay, so we got those ready. Now we're ready to assemble this flap. So this will be my top flap. This will be the bottom flap that comes over it. So I'm going to wait on putting this pocket on until I have this in the book. This one can go on the bottom one. It's going to go down at the bottom. The fold of the pocket goes along the fold of the flap. So it fits right in there. So let's grab my glue. And I'm just going to do the bottom one first. So I'll put glue on that attachment flap. And I'm going to line this up right along the bottom, right along the edge. I'm going to burnish that. Make sure we've got it lined up properly. Open this up. Go ahead and burnish that in there. And then a trick I learned, I believe, from Bonnie, a designer from Country Craft Creations, is, and I think Tamara uses it too, is to take your tape and on the inside cover that with tape on the inside so that your tags or whatever will not hang. Now we're going to go ahead and put this on. So I'll put glue on each attachment tab. We're going to bring that up and we're going to attach them down and we'll burnish. And we have a little pocket on this little flap. Now what's going to happen is this, there's going to be a magnet here and a magnet on the back of this one. So we want to put this one in the book. So grab your album cover and here on the inside of the cover here. We're going to attach this right at the top edge and leave it about 1/16 of an inch from the outer edge here. So I'm going to put glue on the tab, 1/2 inch section. Turn this so I can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to put it on just 1/16 of an inch from the top and from the outer edge. Okay, and I'm going to burnish that. And we're going to open this up and burnish it here on the inside. Now then, this one is going to fit down here at the bottom. So let's put our glue here on our tab. I'm going to line this up. Make sure things lined up properly. Okay. Put this down here at the bottom so that it lines up nicely on the side. So you want them even. We're going to burnish that. If it's flat, this will be covered with paper here on the inside, so don't worry about all the different layers that you see. Now the magnet's going to go right here. So I'm going to grab my magnets. I'm out of the basic gray. I usually like to use the basic gray, so I'm using some different magnets that I have in my stash right now. They're thin little magnets, and they work just fine, but I do like the basic gray because you can order from Country Craft Creations because they have the adhesive, the sticky, to help placement of them. So I'm going to put some glue here on my magnet. I'm going to drop it down about 3/4 of an inch and kind of center it here. Right there. And take my tape to secure it. Now this next one, I don't want to have to wait a long time for it to dry. So I'm going to test this here. This is the way it goes. I'm going to grab some tape and try this. I may have to use score tape instead. I'm going to put tape on the side that attaches down. So we got the tape like that. We're going to put it like that. Then I put a little glue on the back of the magnet, and we're going to close this up, make sure it's even, and see if we can separate that with the tape sticking down, and it did, so that's good. So there we have the magnet on that. So now we can put this pocket on, and I want it above this, so that's why I was waiting to see where to place it. So I'm going to do the bottom first. So on the bottom tab on the 1/2 inch, it's going to attach down like that. We're going to set this right above the other one. Make sure we got it lined up, burnish in there. Then we take our tape. Not too much there, let me see. Pulled off a little bit too much. I'm going to tape down this tab, smooth that out so don't snag. And now we're going to put glue on the back side of our 1/2 inch tabs here. And we're going to pull this up and make sure we're lining it up correctly with the flap that it's going on. There. Grab some wipe here. Okay. So I'm going to burnish this down and make sure it stays down. So there's our little pocket flap. So this one will lift up. Now then, we're ready to put our double pockets here on the other side. So we're going to lift these up like that. And then we're going to put these here. Now we need to pay attention and make sure they're not going into the fold of the spine. So we're going to put one at the bottom. I'm going to check these and see if I need apply on any paper first. This goes right up against there. Okay, they should fit flush in there. Okay, so let's put the bottom one on first. So we're going to put the glue on just this tab here. And we're going to make sure it is not into the hinge of our book by raising it up, and that it's straight right here, as close to the bottom as you can. Burnish that in, and we'll take our tape, add some tape, so we don't snag anything, because we may not put pattern paper all the way down. If you do, then that's fine. So this is going to attach here. Make sure everybody closes up the way they're supposed to. Glue on your tabs. Okay. And now let's fold it down. Make sure this closes. Okay, so now we'll do the bottom on this one. We're going to butt it right up to this other pocket here, so that our tab will close. Burnish this really well. Open it up. Add the tape. And now the glue on the side tabs. And always dry fit your pockets to make sure that everything is going to lay down the way you want it. So I'm going to bring this over and make sure everything's burnished in correctly. Okay, and then that closes up like that. So now this lifts up. This lifts up, then we have the pocket here. Now, of course, it's all going to have pattern paper in there. So that is the inside cover. So now we're ready to make 2 pages that have pockets for the inside of the spine for our pages. For page set 1, we're going to cut 1 out of cardstock that is 10.5 inches by 7 7/8. We're going to put the 10.5 inch in at the top. We're going to score at a 1/2 inch, and then we'll skip over and we're going to score at 6 1/4, and then 6 1/2. This is going to create a flap for us. So what I do is I'm going to fold this one back. So I want the hinge. We're doing an L hinge instead of a hidden hinge. So we want the hinge, this 1/2 inch turned back. And then we want these 2 turned under. So these are going to be on the inside. So I'm burnishing these really well. You're going to have a 1/4 inch, space for your page. So in case we have some bulky stuff in our pocket. So then when this is done like this, you have your hinge that's going to go in your book like this. This will be a solid page on the front, and then this flips over. We have a flap here, and then we're going to add a pocket inside this flap. So the pocket is cut at 8 7/8 by 3, and we're going to score the 8 7/8 side at a 1/2 inch. Turn it all the way around, 1/2 inch on the other end of the 8 7/8, and then return to the 3 inch, and we're going to score at a 1/2 inch to create this pocket. And then again, we're going to miter cut at the intersection on each corner down here, like that. And we'll move this out of the way for now. So we're going to fold and burnish, and we're going to check to make sure that we have clearance here. So this one needed trim just a tiny bit more. See, I don't want them lapping here in this corner, overlapping. I want it a nice mitered corner here. Double check this one, and it needs trimmed a little bit more. It's better to trim less at first than to cut away too much, but you do want this to lay down flat like that. So there's our pocket. I'm going to burnish this one again to make sure. Let's take our page. So we're going to open this up. So we have this flap on the left, the attachment tab hinge here on the right, and we're going to place this right up against that hinge fold, okay? Just dry fitting to make sure everything is the right size. I'm going to put glue just on the bottom tab, on that 1/2 inch section on the back side. And I'm going to turn this so I can see. We've got this hinge here on the left. I'm going to put it, the bottom of the pocket, right along the hinge here. And if it looks like it sticks out too much, you may have to redo that fold just a tiny bit. It's kind of one of those situations where we have an odd size, so I like to cut it as close as I can, but if you can't get it there, then you have to fold that side. So that one's better, and that's, make sure. So I'm looking on the outer side to be sure nothing's sticking out. So now I open this up. I'm going to take my tape again, nice long piece of tape, and I'm just going to seal this up so that things don't get snagged in there when we're sliding it in and out. Okay, and now, oh, I forgot, we need to punch this one. Right there. So let's grab our, whatever you're using to punch. This is folded. It's going to be, you can do it with the flaps open or folded under. Let's see, it's 7 7/8. So it's just that weird one that's under the 4 is the 1/2 of the 8. So bring it back 1/16 of an inch and punch. So I forgot to do that before I attached it down on the bottom. That worked out okay because we still have it done. So now we're going to attach it here on the bottom and on the top. So we put glue on our tab on the inside here, and we attach this down and here and burnish. So now we have a pocket inside. So this is the page. It's going to go in like this. We have the nice big area for decorating or for photos, and then we have this with the space so we can add thicker things into our pocket right there. So that is page set 1. We're going to set that aside. Trying to decide if I want to go ahead and put it in the book or not, because we're going to do some a split page for the next one. So I think I'm going to wait, and we'll get this split page ready and put it in first. So our page set 2 is going to be a split page. I mean, in other words, it's split in half. So I did that by cutting 2 pieces that are 5 1/4, and I made them 3 15/16, which is just a 1/16 or tick mark below 4 inches. You don't want it quite 4 inches because they won't turn good. So you put your 5 1/4, you cut 2 of these that are 5 1/4 by 3 15/16. You're going to put your 5 1/4 in at the top and score at a 1/2 inch. And you're going to do 2 of those that way. So that is actually the page. This is our L hinge here on our page. Then we're going to add pockets to the page. We cut 2 pockets that are 4 7/8 by 4 1/2, and we're going to score the 4 7/8 side at 1/2 inch. We turn it, we score the 4 1/2 side at 1/2 inch, which puts it across the bottom, and then the other 4 1/2 inch, put that back at the top and score the other side at 1/2 inch. So we do that on both of these. Again, we put the 4 7/8 in at the top, we score it at 1/2 inch, turn, score the 4 1/2 inch side at 1/2 inch, turn, and score the other end of the 4 7/8 at 1/2 inch. This makes the pockets here, and then we have 2 smaller pockets that are 4 1/2 by 2 1/2. So we score with the 4 1/2 at the top, score at 1/2 inch, and at 4, turn and score at 1/2 inch. So what we're doing is scoring 1/2 inch on each end and across the bottom. The other one the same way. Score the 4 1/2 in at the top, score at 1/2 inch, and at 4, turn so that your 2 1/2 is at the top and score at 1/2 inch. And so those are the pockets. So let's move this out of the way and we will prep our pockets. So we're going to turn and we're going to cut across the intersection on the bottom of each pocket here, just like we've done before, where I can see my score line. There we go. So that's the 2 intersecting corners on all 4 of these. Even though they're different size, they're done the same. Okay. And then we're going to fold and burnish, and this is where we will check to make sure our intersections or our mitering is enough. If not, we trim a little bit more to get that correct. So those are right. Just burnish it really well to make a nice clean pocket. So this is a little pocket, and we don't want to forget to punch our edges. So let's fold this one up and check it, and it needs trim just a tiny bit more. It's fine. So we burnish this. Okay, there's that pocket. And let's check these, fold these up. Let's check our corners. That one's good. A little bit right here on the edge, maybe. Okay, this side is fine. So now I'll burnish them really well. With these tabs folded under and burnished. And then we'll check this last one. These are good, and so we're ready to burnish that one. Okay, now next, take your punch. So these pockets, you can either do it with it folded or opened, whichever you want. So this one is 4 7/8. Finished, it is 3 7/8. So 3 7/8 is almost 4. So that's 2. That's your 4. Drop it down. So let's see here. This would be 4. So it's 7/8. So I'll move it just an 1/8 of an inch, 16th of an inch, I mean. So there's the punch on that one. So put it in at 2, which would be your 4, and then drop it down towards the center, 1/16 of an inch, to get that half mark on that one. And these are 3 1/2, so that's 1 3/4 is your half mark on those. Punch that, 1 3/4. So now we have our little pockets ready. So let's go ahead and put the split pages in our book. So we grab the book. The split pages are going to be toward the back. This. And the other one's going to come in there. Okay, so I'm going to use this as my guide. I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to put this 1/2 inch tab towards the fold of the book up at the top and pull it down a little bit. I hope I'm still on screen. Yeah, there we go. Pull it down just a little bit and put it right about barely a 1/16 of an inch from the fold. You just want to make sure it's not hindering that. So there's your one page. Make sure it's straight in here, not sticking out. Then we open it up and we're going to put the other one and drop it down just a little bit. So there'll be a little bit of a gap. So put your glue on your tab, the back side of this 1/2 inch, and we're going to line it up here at the bottom and at the top. Now we want to make sure they're in straight, just like this. Okay, and burnish that. That is your split page. Now then on the front side, now I'm not sure if I'm real happy with that. I'm going to pull this up. I don't want that much gap. I apologize for that. Something I needed to look at first. I'm going to line it up here. I just didn't like the gap that I had where it shows this pocket here. I want this one dropped down just a little bit. So before you attach yours down, dry fit them. So I didn't have it in too terribly long, so I'm okay with attaching it down again. This is what I like about glue. Now, if you were using score tape, you could use undo if you wanted to. So I want them closer together so it seals that up. So not as much of a gap as I thought. And then we burnish that in. So these are lined up nice and even. So there's your split page. Now this pocket is going to go right here on top. So I'm going to turn this around so I can see it. The bottom fold of my pocket is going to go towards the fold of this page, or the hinge of the page. So I'm going to do the bottom first. Add some glue. And turn it so I can see it. And I'm going to attach that right on top of the fold of the page. Don't go over. You don't want to hinder it or anything. So burnish that on. Let's make sure she's going to fit on straight. Okay, and burnish. Take our tape. Cover up that seam there. There won't be no snagging. Now we're going to seal this up. Put glue on the side tabs of our pocket. Fold it down. Make sure it lines up. Top and bottom, and burnish. Okay. And we'll put the other one on the same way. I was going to put these on the front side, so I goofed up and put them. Oh, no, I'm right. I've turned my book around. So this is correct. Oh, goodness. Okay. So here, this one goes here. So the pockets are opening to the right. So we put the tab on here, on the bottom one. Let's line it up. Be careful when you're turning your book so that you can see it better, because sometimes if you're like me, you'll get yourself upside down. So we line this up. I apologize for my phone. I haven't put it on silent. Sorry about that. I had to put my phone on silent. So we burnish this, and then we put the glue on the side tab. Make sure we're lining it up. Okay, and burnish that. So we have the pockets here on the front side. We're going to flip it over. So I apologize, I forgot to turn the camera back on. On the back side of this split page, this is where I put the little short pockets. Put them all the way to the far right along the hinge of the page. As in the other pockets, put the bottom tab on first, put your tape, then do your two sides. I also did the punch on them. Hopefully I showed that. So you do the punch in these pockets where you attach them on. Now then, after I've done that, I've decided I want these corners rounded on each half page. So I'm going to do this with it attached. It's much easier if you do it before. Make sure your wings are open up. And go ahead and punch the corners of the page, not the pockets, just the page. Whoops, that was not quite right. It's a little more tricky, but you can do it with it attached as long as there's plenty of room. Okay, so those are punched like that. So now we're ready to put this front page in. Now on it, I also want to round the corners of the flap here. I'm going to open it up and round, make sure my wings are open. Put this in and round the flap. And then that's that. And so the page will not be rounded, but just the flap. Okay, so let's clean this up. Okay, and now we're ready to put this in. So take a good look at it. We want to make sure we have extra space, some on the front. So if we put this pretty much to the edge of this gives us a 1/2 inch. And it'll give us a little more than a 1/2 inch here on the front. So if you want to back it up some, but I'm going to put it completely 1/2 inch and then let this have 3/4 of a space. So if I want to put flowers or something, I can. So here on this back hinge, I'm going to put it on the glue here with it folded towards the flap, and then so that the glue is on the back side of the hinge, and it's going to sit in here onto the spine. I'm going to butt it up to the pockets and line it up with the split page, the top and bottom. So burnish that in, make sure it's pretty straight and where you want it. Okay, and then burnish that. So that's the page in. Now we need some magnets for this flap here to keep this pocket contained. You know, I think maybe it will work just fine without that, or I may do some other kind of closure, so I'm going to leave that. These don't need a magnet. So we use 2 magnet sets in this album. So that is the assembled album. This right here, you might want to allow a little more, trim down a little bit more on your waterfalls in your base. So I'll make a note of that in the guide, because it does kind of bend out just a little bit. I'm okay with it on mine, but for you, I want you to be able to make sure that it's straight in there. So this is the tutorial, the basic tutorial. Now the next thing you would need to decide is if you want a closure. I'm thinking it closes pretty good. I may not put one. If you do, you could do a seam binding tie or a magnetic type band or a belly band, whatever you want to do. I'm thinking I will not. I'm not sure. I'm not going to include that in the tutorial. This is the basic album. So you have your album here with your hidden waterfall behind these flaps here. So you have all your waterfall there. You have this page. You have the flap page here with a pocket. These pockets here on the split page, and then the pockets here in there. So I will show you all this in a separate walkthrough. The finished album, again, I'm going to be using the Sweet Southern Mess, a country themed, a 12 by 12 paper collection made out of cotton Bristol, designed by Country Craft Creations, exclusive to Country Craft Creations. So that's what I'll be doing with mine, and I will get it all put together and do a showcase video And of course, I have shown you this finished album at the very beginning of the tutorial. So I want to thank you all so much for following along. Thank you if you subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it so much. And if you haven't, please do. I invite you to subscribe. Be sure and click the bell. That will notify you of my next project. Make sure you shop at countrycraftcreations.com for all these exclusive paper collections for your adhesives, your seam binding ribbons, your different flowers and embellishments that you might want for your projects, for the artisan cardstock, and for chipboard, the heavyweight chipboard that you may need for a project. So check that all out at countrycraftcreations.com. Click the like, thumbs up like, because that makes my video show up more in searches for other people, so we can get new people joining us in crafting and supporting Country Craft Creations. So again, thank you so very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.